The 5 reasons why the US LLC might be the ultimate international business vehicle that you have not been considering. Hello, my name is Javier Correa. I'm the tax director here at the Rothbard Group, and I'm also a licensed enrolled agent admitted to practice before the IRS. Let's dive right in. What makes the US LLC such a powerful vehicle for international business, particularly if you are a non-resident alien, meaning a non-US person for tax purposes, i.e. a non-US citizen, non-green card holder, and somebody who does not meet the requirements of tax residence in the US under the substantial presence test? Here, I'm going to give you 5 major reasons to consider the US LLC as one of your primary corporate vehicles and corporate assets within your structure. Number 1 is the ease and speed of entity formation. Unlike companies in, for example, Panama, Hong Kong, Singapore, BVI, etc., a US LLC can be formed very, very quickly. Often in about 2, maximum 3 days, you can get your US LLC fully formed and ready to operate. Number 2 is privacy. Many US states, and if you know how to choose the right US states, and we have other videos where we talk about the ideal states in the vision of the Rothbard Group, many states allow US LLCs to have a high degree of privacy. So for example, in many cases, the members of US LLCs, which are the owners of LLCs, can remain fully private. They are only present in private documents such as the LLC operating agreement, but they are not publicly available. In some other states, they even go as far as not listing the managers on any public documents. Now, obviously, the ideal state will vary from profile to profile, but I would say that the US LLC offers a very high degree of privacy, especially in the current international setting that favors and is, I would even say, obsessed with excessive transparency. Number 3 is tax neutrality. So when we talk about international business vehicles, we do have to prioritize tax neutrality for international business operations. And just like Panamanian corporations, if structured properly, can be tax neutral because in Panama, foreign source income is simply not taxable, not subject to Panamanian tax, a foreign-owned US LLC can achieve the same result. Albeit with more architecture, more careful tax planning. You do need to work with a professional like the Rothbard Group. This requires very delicate and high precision planning to work, but it can be done. So a US LLC can be structured to be a tax transparent entity, meaning that the income flows through the US LLC down to its member owners who will pay tax on the income in accordance to their rules. So essentially, in a nutshell, if you create a situation where you have a US LLC that is taxed as either a partnership or a disregarded entity, and that US LLC only generates non-US source income, that income that is foreign source from the US perspective can flow through the US LLC down to its members, and if its members are non-resident aliens, it's foreign income in the hands of foreigners, not taxable in the United States, even though we are using a US business entity and US financial infrastructure, and in many cases even selling to US clients. And that brings me to the 4th element, which is access to robust financial infrastructure in the United States. So it is true that you can obtain access to financial infrastructure through a Panamanian corporation or a BVI company, but the US is simply unparalleled in terms of the fees, in terms of the ease with which you can open a bank account and a merchant account, as well as the flexibility for transactional business banking. Let me put it to you this way. In the United States, with a US LLC and the proper documentation, with the guidance of a professional group like the Rothbard Group, you can get a top-tier business account at a bank like Bank of America or JP Morgan Chase within 15 minutes to 30 minutes. With a Panamanian corporation, you're going to take between 3 to 6 weeks to get a decent business account. In addition to that, when it comes to merchant accounts, payment processing, in the United States, you can get exceptionally high quality merchant processors, whether it's Stripe, PayPal, Biller Genie, and oftentimes you're going to be paying maybe between 1.8 to 2.8% in payment processing fees, whereas offshore payment processors are going to charge usually 3.5 to 5 and sometimes even 6% to process credit and debit card payments through your offshore company. So you can do the math. In addition to that, let's talk about minimum deposits. A US LLC can have a top-level business account like the ones I just described before with a minimum deposit of $2,000, whereas a Panamanian corporation to access decent level banking will need to put in, I want to say, at least $10,000 in certain banks. And if you want to access US banking, there we're talking about deposits that have to be as high as $50,000 to even $100,000 minimum in certain banks just to access US financial infrastructure in a limited manner. So the US LLC can also be a great company if you are on a budget. Now, in addition to that, the other element that I want to point out is the reputation and image. Now, this would be point number 5. So when you are doing business, particularly with Western markets, and here I mean the US itself, Canada, most of the European Union, if not all of the European Union, Switzerland, the UK, etc., you want an entity that is presentable. You want an entity that your clients in the West have no hesitance in sending money to. And you want an entity that can easily receive payments without Western banks in Canada, the US, and Europe, flagging the transaction as high risk. And here the US LLC is clearly the winner. It has an undisputed advantage over any other kind of offshore vehicle. When you have a client in the Republic of Ireland or Switzerland or Canada or the US itself sending money to a US LLC with a Bank of America or Chase account, that company has extremely low likelihood of having any issues when it comes to the transaction. The likelihood of being flagged is essentially slim to none. Whereas if you operate with a Bahamian, Nevis, Hong Kong, or Panama company, if you have all your documentation in order, things will flow, but ultimately you can expect to have more friction. The banks are going to want to see your invoices, your contracts, your documents of your relationship with your client much more frequently than big American banks that just welcome US LLCs. So US LLCs can offer everything that you would want in the optimal international business vehicle. Ease of incorporation formation, robust privacy, tax neutrality with the right planning, access to US financial infrastructure, which is unparalleled when it comes to transactional flexibility. And then you also get a great image if you're doing business with the West. The US LLC, of course, has its disadvantages. The tax planning can be difficult. It's not as easy as Hong Kong or Panama where, hey, foreign source income is simply not taxable. In the US, you need to file the right forms. You need to file them on time. You need to make sure that you're working with a licensed US tax advisor. Like here in the Rothbard Group, I am an enrolled agent, duly licensed by the Treasury Department, and I can guide you through the most complex tax code in the world to make sure that when the IRS comes knocking down your door every single year, when you have to file your tax return, everything is done correctly, and the end result is complete tax neutrality. Another difficulty is obviously that the US LLC has to file a tax return in many cases. If you're a partnership LLC or an LLC taxed as a partnership rather, you need to file a 1065 tax return every single year, even if the result is no tax due. If you're a single member LLC, you need to file your informational returns, Form 5472 and 1120 pro forma, and you cannot miss them. Otherwise, the penalties can be very severe. So it is delicate. On top of that, litigation culture in the US can be very aggressive. So while the US is exceptional for transactional banking, maybe it's not the ideal place to store your wealth. But then here's the beauty of it. In this diversified world where multi-jurisdictional planning is more possible than ever, thanks to the growth of the digital economy, the US LLC can just be a part of your puzzle. And if you work with somebody like the Rothbard Group, the US LLC will be a valuable weapon in your arsenal, but it won't be the only weapon. We are exceptionally talented in combining US LLCs with the right kind of offshore structure to allow each entity to do what it does best. It's not just the US LLC alone doing all the heavy lifting. It's the US LLC with a Panamanian corporation. It's the US LLC with an offshore trust. It's the US LLC with US banking, but the foreign structure with foreign banking. Because ultimately what we want is a structure that unlocks freedom, a structure that allows you to keep the fruits of your labor, a structure that allows you to rest easy at night knowing that your assets are protected, but also knowing that your clients can pay you easily and that will allow your business to grow exponentially. And that's why the US LLC is not the only answer, but it is a big part of the answer. So if you're ready to discuss how the US LLC can be integrated into your puzzle, and you want to know what other pieces in Panama or around the world can be integrated to enhance your freedom, look no further. Rothbardgroup.com. We welcome the opportunity to work with you. And I'll see you in the next video.